everyone, and welcome back to Lauren's Take. Oh my goodness, I'm excited because we are finally in the second week of Percy Jackson and the Olympians season 2, and we just got episode 3. I'm so excited to be talking to you all about it. I'm going to try to make this video a little quicker than I did the last video, and it took me a lot longer to edit, but hopefully we will get through it. But before we get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already, and let's get into it. All right, so I wrote a ton of notes for episode 3. It was actually a shorter episode. It was only 37 minutes. But what I really loved in this episode, that it was pretty much mainly only on the Princess Andromeda, as well as kind of telling the backstory of how Clarice gets to where she gets to when she eventually meets Percy and Annabeth and Tyson. So I really enjoyed being able to see all of these things kind of flesh out in the show, and also just, kind of getting to see a little bit more of Clarice, because there was a whole conversation between her and Aries that we were like not expecting, and I was just like, the world, what is happening right now? So I was really excited about that. But let's get into it. So one of the first things that happened in the episode, we finally got a reference to Percy being able to stage right. That's like a big thing in all of the books in Heroes of Olympus and in Percy Jackson. So I don't know why I'd first referenced Heroes of Olympus, but anyway, that's one of the very first things that we talk about in the book. So that's something that I was really excited that the show finally fleshed out. And it was really funny that it was Tyson that brought it up. He was like, "Wait, how are you trying? What the heck? What's going on?" So I thought that was really, really funny. Then also the Perciveth convo. Y'all, the Perciveth of it all was so good. That's so good. Oh my gosh. I think what was so great about this conversation, and I still laugh at Walker and Leah, because both of them say, yeah, y'all over analyze all of our looks and all these things. It's just acting. It's just this. But it's like, do you all pay attention to how you talk to one another as Perciveth? It is insane. Is everything matters in terms of whatever's happening between the two. And I think that's the funniest part about any time I see Walker and Leah on screen acting as Perciveth, because they get it without even realizing they get it, and it's hilarious. So, anyway. But the Perciveth conversation, in a sense of Percy basically telling Annabeth it was okay that she didn't tell him, or she wasn't telling him what Chiron had said. I thought that was really good, because Percy, that's where I was trying to get him to get to in episode 2, and Grover had to kind of get into my hey, did you possibly think that this was a thing? And I really love that Percy was like, okay, I know whatever Chiron had to say must be something serious, and if he's putting you in this position, it must be really serious, and I don't want to know. If it's going to put you in that position, I don't want to know. He was like, because I know I trust Chiron, but I trust you even more. And I was like, ah! And I was like, ah! That's what we're talking about. And she was like, okay. And then he was like, so I thought we could go with a code word. Boom. And I was like, I should have known that was going to be a joke, because he kept saying it in episode 2 ever since he heard it. And it cracked me up. So that was really, really good. I thought it was really interesting that going to the Clarice of it all, because it was Perciveth and Tyson, and then Clarice, Perciveth and Tyson, Clarice, Perciveth. It kept doing the kind of back and forth in terms of what was happening in this part of the world and this part of the world. And what was funny was, I thought it was interesting that Aries directly gave Clarice the ironclad, because I'm pretty sure in the book it's just more so she just stumbles across it when on a ship, and it's because the folks on the ironclad are Confederate armies, and all former military groups that have lost a war owe a debt to Aries. So I thought it was interesting to have Aries directly give her the ironclad and say, hey, y'all need to treat my daughter right, but acknowledge that top class training, but she's very inexperienced in the real world. This is her first quest. So haha. So him doing that, in his mind, he thought he was helping, or I don't know if he thought he was helping, because I think he was still trying to throw shade. But anyway, I thought that was really interesting. And then to see that kind of inner turmoil that Clarice was going through, I think Dior did a really good job with that. So I think that was something that I enjoyed seeing that. But also Aries' threat was really intense at the same time, and it kind of connects to one thing that is going to eventually happen most likely in episode 4, based off of what I saw in the preview, in terms of when Aries and Clarice have that conversation on the ironclad, and he's basically saying how the heck did you get yourself in this position where you were literally pretty much allowing this guy Percy to pretty much take over the quest. And it was really important because that's something like Percy overheard, but like they never, like they talked about it, but not like really, like it didn't hit. So I'm excited to see how that fleshes out, especially with the fact that we directly saw the conversation between Aries and Clarice and the fact that he was threatening her already. Then I really loved how like Percy had that whole situation where he and Annabeth were on the Princess Andromeda and they were just trying to scope it out, trying to figure out if they can like try to figure out where they were, who, they could talk to, because Tyson, of course, smelled the monsters and they were just like, what's going on? How do we like navigate this thing and how do we try to figure it out? So Percy and Annabeth, Percy and Annabeth went on their little quest on the boat and everything, and they run across Allison. And I kind of like this connection because with Allison being like a former demigod that was at Camp Half-Blood, and of course she's a demigod that we see at the beginning of season 2 with Grover. I thought that was just really cool that we had that connection in between each part of the show. And so that was really fun to like see Percy try to figure out like, hold up, you seem familiar. Like Annabeth automatically knew who she was, of course, because Annabeth has been at Camp Half-Blood for so long, but Percy was like, Allison, hold up. You're the one who stumbled across Grover and was trying to hurt my dude. Like, wait, hold up. And then enter fight scene, and they were eating down. That was like such a wonderfully choreographed scene. I loved having that hand-to-hand combat, or really like, weapon. It wasn't hand-to-hand, but it was combat. And it was really fun to be able to see Percival really working as a unit because we don't get to see that often. So I think this is genuinely one of the first moments we really get to see Percy and Annabeth directly working together. I mean, we had some scenes in season 1 where we had this connection, but this is like the first time in particular that we actually see them like kind of working head to head against another demigod aside from Luke, because of course that was just Percy and Luke. Annabeth just kind of like ended it. So this was really cool to be able to see that connection, and also like the Percy paying attention to the card with Kronos' symbol on it. I love that they pick it up together. I love that Percy and Annabeth have like this like the tag team situation, because Annabeth is always going to be thinking about how does this thing interact with this thing, or how does this thing connect to this thing, and then Percy is just like picking up on like little cues of just like, hold up, I recognize that. What's hold up, is that this? And then he's right. And then Annabeth's like, oh, crap. And then she, puts 2 and 2 together. And so I love how they work together. And I love how the show really develops that. Because that's something like we see, of course, in the novel, but it's something to be it's really cool to be able to see on screen. So I really love that they're having that connection between Percy and Annabeth as they really are becoming the dream team, that we know and love. But then, of course, they come across love. And also, really quick, before I even get into the standoff scene between Percival Tyson and Luke, the big thing that I was really excited about is that it was a line that Percy had said where he was like in him right here, or I think it was like something along those lines. And Percy was like, not Percy, Annabeth was like, end him? Like what? No, we can stop him. We can capture him, but why would we kill him? Like what? That wasn't the plan. That wasn't the plan. And I love seeing that because, at first she's, of course she's trying to do what she's supposed to do in terms of getting, saving camp and all of this important things connected to the plot. But I think it's also important to pay attention to, again, something that I talked about in the last video about, and that was shown in episodes 1 and 2 of Annabeth really feeling torn. And I love that they're doing such a great job in developing this because she's torn in so many ways right now. One, the Luke situation, one, the Great Prophecy situation, all of this stuff. Like, poor Annabeth is going through it in her mind. And to be honest, like, she was really dealing with grappling with all of this at once. And so I love being able to see how Leah is portraying Annabeth's inner turmoil of dealing with this, because it's really difficult. It's really challenging, especially because Percy is like, nah, Luke is no longer there. And then like kind of leading into that conversation of the standoff where they have that conversation with Luke, and Luke is still trying to convince them to join his side. He is like, yeah, your dad really wanted me to come on here to try to save you, but I told him you were too far gone. And he was like, yeah, I am. And that poor Annabeth is just like, oh my gosh, like, how could you do this to Thalia? Like, you literally, she's like my sister. And or you're like my brother, she's like my sister, like you essentially almost killed our sister. And he was like, Annabeth, you don't know her as much as I do. And I was like, ooh, not you doing that. He was like, I was with her a whole 2 years before you came along. You were only with her for 2 months. You don't know how she was thinking. You don't know how, how she was feeling about this thing and that thing. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I loved it. It was a lot. It was emotional. It was too much, but I loved it because I really love how the show is making all of us just like kind of question it. And that's something that like, when we get multiple perspectives and really get to see it from not only Percy's lens, but also Annabeth's, also Luke's, and being able to really, kind of see the frustration that the characters are dealing with and the anger, because not only, of course, Annabeth and Percy are on the side of the gods, but they both have frustrations with their parents. And then, what Luke was saying, it was kind of like, he kind of got a point. It's kind of like the Killmonger situation in Black Panther, where it was like, he kind of has a point, but the way of how he's going about it is like horrible. Same situation here. I think a lot of people I've been seeing on threads and Twitter, like the funny thing about it is really funny because we're like, Luke wasn't this convincing in the book, but I think we're also in this time period where it's like, you kind of have to question how things are going. Like, should we stay in this mindset of just like allowing things to be the way that they are, just kind of suck it up and deal with it? Or should we kind of fight against it? And then Annabeth going through this whole mental, Olympics of just like, hold up. Everything that I've known is not where it needs to be. And I was like, hold up. I love that they are doing this. Where, it sucks that she has to question everything, but it's also perfect because that is a big part of growing up and a big part of just like trying to figure out things, and how Percy's even in that situation of like really feeling like he is on the right side, but like also kind of seeing where kind of seeing where Luke is coming from. And then especially like when we move forward into when Annabeth fully tells him the Great Prophecy situation, how that ends up becoming as big as it does in terms of Percy is like, I wish you did tell me, because now he knows that if he is the person that they're talking about in the Great Prophecy, he could turn the tides of the whole war. Either Olympians win or Kronos wins. So that whole situation of him now having to deal with that responsibility, they just ate down. And I think that whole scene, it was so important because of what Luke was saying and how Charlie really delivered that performance. So shout out to you, Charlie. Yes. Shout out to you, Leah. Yes. Shout out to you, Walker. Yes. Shout out to you, Daniel. Everybody there. Everybody wins. Really, really loved how they fleshed out that scene. They also connected the whole thing of Tyson being able to mimic voices. And we saw this a little bit earlier. I think, was it episode 1 or episode 2? It happened earlier, I know, in the first couple of episodes, but it was really cool to see it again because that is like straight from the book. And then, where Percy and Annabeth realized too late that, oh crap, that means they're coming right now. I love that. So I was really glad that we were able to have that little connection that's directly from Sea of Monsters. Also, real quick, one thing that I really, really enjoyed seeing was another connection to Leah's portrayal of Annabeth, how she was physically showing how she was just so torn. Not only do we know how she's dealing with in terms of like her facial expressions, but like how she's kind of holding herself, just kind of like she's usually so comfortable around Luke. And then also seeing Charlie, how in his portrayal of Luke, how he really just wants to go and like comfort Annabeth, but knows that they're not in that place right now. And both of them are kind of torn because they're like, what is happening right now? And I really, really, really want to just give Leah and Charlie props on really demonstrating that, because I think that was something that was just like, it's something that it takes Annabeth a long, long time to kind of get over. And the fact that we were really being able to visually see that pain, the struggle that she's dealing with, not only internally, but also physically in terms of body language and everything like that. They did a phenomenal job in terms of portraying how both of them are feeling with just body language alone. I really was so stressed with them separating Tyson from them. But then, oh, y'all, this was a huge, huge thing that I really, really loved. When they had the connection of Tyson with the last Dragonians and how he was fitting in with them. And this is still connected to how Luke was really trying to convince them to like actually be in this mindset of how everything was working out. I loved how they developed this. This was perfection. I truly enjoyed it because I think it helped us to realize, hold up, this is the first time Tyson really feels that he belongs. No one is judging him. No one is disturbed by him. No one is disgusted by him. I loved how they portrayed that whole situation and how he was able to automatically fix something and be able to support the last Dragonians in something. And he was like, these guys are kind of cool. And Percy being torn in that situation, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to take him from this because, like, this is the first time he's actually feeling accepted and loved and appreciated. And I love that. I love that they showed that so early because I don't believe that that's something that's not in the book until way, way later. And especially like we see it with Beckendorf, of course, but this is like the first time we really got to see it in the show. And I really, really love them developing this, especially for us to really see Tyson's, his overall arc throughout the course of the story. And it also kind of sets up what's going to end up happening close to the end of or at the end of season 2 as connected to the end of Sea of Monsters in terms of when Tyson goes and works with Poseidon at his palace and works with the other Cyclops there and everything like that. So I really, really loved that they kind of set that up. But then that connects us to the bomb that he made. He was like, oh yeah, I need one of those fireballs if you can, give me one. And he ends up making a bomb, and then he walked out so freaking cool. I said, yes. And he saved Percy. And then Percy pretty much tells Tyson, he was like, hey, like, I know that had to hurt where you like literally just like messed up the really cool friendship that you could have had with him and everything. He was like, why did you end up doing that? He was like, because you and Annabeth were not where you all weren't safe and I had to save you all. He was like, that's what a real hero does. Y'all, when I tell you I was ruined, I was messed up. I was like, they did not do this to me. They're not doing this to me this early. Like, I don't know what is in the water in season 2, y'all. It is just so, so good. And I just love this so much because it helps us to love Tyson even more, but it also helps us to really see the themes of the show coming through in the sense of like, things are not always going to go the way that you want it to. But in order to be a hero, you're going to have to make decisions that you don't necessarily want to make or that are not necessarily going to put you in a position that you want to be in. But when you think about the greater good and when you think about the people that really matter to you, you have to make those decisions. You have to make those sacrifices. And that's something that I really love that they developed strongly with Tyson's character. Another thing with Perciveth, and especially just how Percy is so, like, his fatal flaw, like at this point he doesn't know what it is, right? We know what it is. It's his loyalty, right? Like undying, unwavering loyalty, right? And to protect his friends. And how every time without fail, Walker as Percy will step in front of our girl Annabeth just to make sure she's good. He knows she'll be fine. But it's that situation of like, he has to protect her at all costs. He could care less about himself. He could care less about everybody else. As long as Annabeth is safe, that is what matters. That also kind of gets us ready really for that moment in Last Olympians, praying we get a season 5 of them being able to demonstrate this, because this is such an important thing in terms of, where Percy is really trying to defend, doing this. He's also trying to save his back, and Annabeth is saving his back, and she ends up getting stabbed in the process, and how he's like, no one touch her. I love this. I love how Walker does this so well as Percy in almost every instant. I'm like, there he goes again. He's in front of her. Love that. And also, I did want to talk about how just like the whole situation of like that scene where Luke was really trying to convince them, and everything. Did you like catch that the dummies literally had like Camp Half-Blood shirts on? Or they were orange, and I'm pretty sure they were Camp Half-Blood shirts. I was like, that is crazy work that y'all would do that. You were like literally setting these former campers up to defeat demigods. Like, that is insane. And then it also like adds the depth to what's going on and the sadness of what's going on tremendously. I really thought that was a really great touch. All right, a couple more things. So this is after now Tyson has used the explosion, blew up the ship and everything. And after the conversation and everything, but then like when Percy, Annabeth, and Tyson get on the lifeboat out, and start sailing towards the sea of monsters, and how there's this standoff between Luke and Percy, that ate down, because it kind of gives us that sneak peek into what's to come with those two. I really loved that shot. I thought it was an amazing, amazing, amazing shot. Chef's kiss, no notes. I'm going back to Clarice, because at this point, the crew, they've been making fun of her, being nasty to her. She's been really trying to make her, or stand her mark, or, really make her mark with this crew and everything. But she finally gets to the point where she has the speech where she's like, you know what, y'all? You want to make fun of me because I don't have my experience or anything, but didn't you really want to do this because you want to prove yourself? And she has this whole conversation with them, and she was like, I want you all to think about that in terms of, this is our common thing. We are all trying to prove ourselves. We are all trying to take glory, or we're all trying to claim glory. And I really loved that, because I think she had that moment. She finally found her voice, and that was really cool to see. Now, to the last few minutes of this episode, I don't know how I feel about the Great Prophecy being revealed this early. And it's not the full Great Prophecy, of course. It's what we get in the book. But in the book, we don't get it until after the siren scene. And my problem with it being released this early is that now it's like a constant thing that Percy is dealing with. And I remember they said they were going to tell it, and they said they were going to say it early. And I was just thinking they were going to tell the whole prophecy early. I thought that's what they meant. No, they meant they were going to do that scene early. I don't know if I agree with it, mainly because I think it's something that like everything kind of points towards it. I think we could have built it a little bit longer. I think they wanted to do it more so in terms of really connecting this situation of Percy having to grow throughout this season. So I understand why they made the change. I don't know. I'll see how it goes. At first, when I watched it, I was like, I don't know. I think it is really good in terms of how it was handled. I think that whole conversation in terms of Annabeth, like, hey, this is the situation. And he was like, you know what? You were totally right. I wish I didn't know this information. But it's the fact that he always trusts her. That's the thing that drives him. And I love that we got to see that connection as well. So, I'm so hyped. I'm so hyped for the next episode, because we had so much in this episode, y'all. Please comment down below your thoughts. OMG. I also want to really quickly talk about the preview, because in the preview, we get our first clip of Thalia, and I'm so hyped. I'm so excited, y'all. It's going to be so exciting. Because, they're already filming season 3. They're probably close to finishing season 3. So I'm so excited to see her on screen. Next episode is going to be amazing. We're also going to get that huge water fight scene where Percy is really going to be doing his thing. I can't wait to see that. And also all of the things that occur with that scene. That's going to be really, really cool and really, really fun. But yeah, I can't wait. Y'all comment down below how excited you are about episode 4, what you're excited about and looking forward to seeing. And with that, lovelies, that concludes this video. Please give this video a big thumbs up. Don't give it a thumbs down. That's just rude. Also, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And I will be back with the next episode review next week, probably on Wednesday or Thursday. Well, next Thursday would be Christmas. Oh my goodness. So hopefully on Christmas Eve, I will have it out for you all. But if not, it'll come out on Christmas. But I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. For my folks in school, you got one more day if you were in like public school, K through 12, because I teach K through 12, so tomorrow's my last day of work for the next, and then 2 weeks off, let's go. But I know for a fact the next week, right in time for New Year's Day, I will definitely have the episode probably out to you all on New Year's Eve. And yeah, so I'm excited to see y'all in the next one. All right, bye.